Hey man, y'all got any more of them tips? Hey, what's up? I am not a professional, but I got a tip. It's a not so pro tip. Hey guys, what's up? Rye with Bull City Speed here with another not so pro tip. What are we talking about today? Bam! Parker push lock hose. This one's for you turbo guys. If you're still running around with zip ties and vacuum lines, you need to step your game up, and here's how you're gonna do it. This is Parker push lock hose. Some people call it push to connect. I just call it push lock. You go into a Parker store or any hydraulic store and just say, hey, I need some push lock hose, or you just Google it if you don't have a store in your local area, and you can find it. Most of the time, for vacuum purposes on turbo applications and stuff like that, for boost lines, wastegate control. And get to the point. I will, man, chill, all right? Dance. It comes in different sizes. The highest I've ever used is 1/2 inch on some air ride stuff. 1/4 inch works fine, okay? That's what I use on this car. If you really want your car to bounce up and down, that's a different story. That's a whole other video series altogether, and we will do that. Getting off track, back on track, train tracks, racetrack? Someone say racetrack? 1/4 inch hose, push lock, check it out. So these are push lock fittings. I don't know if you can see this or not because that light is really washing everything out, but you gotta deal with it. Just take the line, jam it in there, give it a little tug, and then when you want to take it out, you can see there is a little, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it doesn't matter. There's a little collar on there, and you pull it, and the line slides out. No more zip ties, rubber lines, silicone lines, all nylon. 200 something degrees, 200 something PSI, way more than you will ever need in a turbo application unless you're running some big crazy diesel truck. So, let me show you what I did on the car. Bam, there you go. So you can see on these, this green collar is that collar I was talking about, that you push this collar in and you can pull the line right out. No cutting a zip tie, no unscrewing anything, nothing. The way these work is there are teeth inside of the fitting that kind of bite into the nylon of the line, and then there's also an O-ring further down. So the O-ring seals the line, the teeth bite it to retain it. You can't pull this out without breaking the plastic. They're rated at a really high PSI. In some applications, they're even DOT rated for air brakes. Like this line in itself actually says air brake line on it. You can get a million different fittings. You can get straight ones. I have some 90 degrees down there on the housings for the turbo coming out of there. I have a Y fitting here to go to the wastegates, and I have a T fitting. As much as your imagination can dream of, you can pretty much get it. These are primarily used for pneumatic control devices. Pneumatic control being air. And what's controlled by air? Wastegates. So how are we controlling the wastegates? I'm glad you asked. Check it out. Here's another tip for you. Tip within a tip. To control the wastegate, the boost controller will take air that the turbo is pushing into the intake, takes some air here and regulates it, pushes it out this hose, and pushes it to the top of the dome. You'll hear the word dome pressure a lot when you're talking about turbos. This line right here is trying to open the wastegate. This line right here is trying to force it closed. So it's a battle back and forth to regulate how hard that valve opens up right there, and that is what determines how much boost you're making. How it does that? Magic. Just kidding. It senses the dome pressure in the wastegate off of this 3-bar map sensor. The computer pulses these solenoids up and down, back and forth, up, down, up, down, up, down, and it constantly regulates that pressure. You control all that with either a boost controller, or if your computer is capable of doing it, through the computer. Pretty simple. If you need to, you can kind of Google some images and look up some more. There's tons of information out there on how boost control works. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. This is just the way we're doing it. Another thing, here's a tip for everybody that you should kind of pay attention to. If you're building a car from scratch, or if you're putting a turbo kit on your car and you're running the vacuum lines, you may want to pay particular attention to where you get the source for your boost controller, the controlling source. So this port right here on this Nick Williams 102 throttle body is actually in front of the throttle blade, meaning it will never see the vacuum of the intake. It will only see the boost, and zero whenever the blow-off valve's open or you're at idle or whatever. what that does is that prevents this line from ever seeing a vacuum, which means this, in theory, should be able to respond faster to pinch the gate shut in order for the car to spool up quicker if you ever have to pedal it or whenever you shift gears. It's a theory. I don't know. Maybe I'll do some back-to-back testing and see how it does, just move that line around. The other thing it does is it isolates the signal for this from the signal for the fuel pressure regulator, as well as the signal that the computer is going to see for the boost. Why is that important? All right, so here's the scenario. You're at home, you're taking a shower, and your dad is in the next room taking a massive dump. You can smell it coming through the AC vents, just big steamer, like, just, I mean, he's probably gonna get a coat hanger to make sure it goes down. Just huge dump. Ugh, you got it now? So when he's done, he flushes the toilet. Remember, you're in the shower. What happens to the water pressure? It drops, okay? That's what happens here. Boost controller is your dad taking the dump. Everything else, fuel pressure regulator, the map sensor, is you in the shower. So when your dad is done bending a biscuit off in the bowl and hits the handle, everything else is gonna lose water pressure or boost signal, okay? So when you lose a boost signal to a fuel pressure regulator, what happens? Fuel pressure goes down. When you lose a boost signal to the map sensor on the computer, what happens? The fuel trims gets cut out a little bit and it leans it out a little bit because it thinks you're not running as much. Those little lean spikes on there can cause havoc and could potentially risk a motor. So those are things to think about. If you've got a high demand system, such as boost control, real fart, and you run it into the same shared vacuum source as everything else, that may be a scenario that you're gonna have to deal with, which is why I've isolated it. You don't necessarily have to put it in front of the throttle blade like I did. You can just put it on a different port running right off the intake because it's pulling from that huge volume of air in there now, so it's gonna have less of an effect on it overall. Think about it like this. Say I got 1 gallon of water, right? And I need half a gallon. I take half a gallon away. That's going to be a big effect. But if you take a half a gallon out of, say, a swimming pool, it's not really going to notice. It's not going to affect it very much. Same thing. So yeah, so if you already have a running car that's set up, it's tuned, and it's plumbed differently than this, that's fine, just leave it alone. But if you're installing a fresh kit or doing a fresh build on a car, these are some things you might want to consider. And when it comes time to actually plumb the vacuum system and all your boost control. So keep that in mind. It could save your motor one day. Anyway, as always, I am Rye with Bull City Speed, and that is your not-so-pro tip. If you have any tips for me, hit me up on Facebook, send me a message at Bull City Speed. Also, please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. All that, much love to everybody who already has. Please hit me up on youtube.com, search Bull City Speed, and subscribe on there as well. And the Instagram is up, at Bull City Speed. Please check it out on all of the social media platforms, as everything will be a little bit different and with some sprinkling content all over this mofo. As always, thanks again for all the support. I'm Rye at Bull City Speed. Take it sleazy.